and you stand up and execute the commands of Allah. Do what you've been commanded. That's it. As for the result, are you going to establish something massive and this is going to have huge consequences for the rest of mankind and leave a legacy? That is up to Allah. Upon us is only the work, and Allah rewards for the effort.
Now, the other element before we move on to a break is GCSE and A-level exams are coming up.
Yeah.
And as a teacher, I'd like to ask you, most of us students, inshallah, will do very well, but some of the students may not perform very well. And there is a concept in the family, if you don't get the good grades, that's it, done. Failure. You won't do anything in life. You won't achieve anything in life. That mindset surely needs to change.
Yeah, I think you need to put everything down to one set of exams, GCSEs, A-levels, even degree, even a master's, a PhD. This is no longer the world we live in. You know, there may have been a time where these things were the ultimate or most important thing in our lives.
That's correct.
There may have been a time like that. It's not the case anymore. You know, education doesn't have that value out in the real world. How many people do we know who didn't get such a great education, and then they went out there and they started businesses and they're doing very well for themselves, okay? Known in the community. Millionaires, billionaires who were dyslexic, who had problems with the academic side of education.
Correct.
So that is not the be-all and end-all. And for us, you know, we need to take a lesson.
Now, my dear viewers, Shaykh is giving us a reminder, and this is one thing that we have to learn from here, that as he's mentioned, if the conclusion is that success is, we have to understand the success in its true meaning. And the problem with us as human beings, we understand, as you've mentioned, success means how many buildings have I got?
Yeah.
How many properties do I own? What is my bank balance? And in terms of result, also another thing I'd like to add, your cousin has got an A star.
Yeah, this is a big one, isn't it?
Your brother has got an A star. Your sister has got into a medical college. So you have to go and do something similar, if not the same.
Yet the Prophet ﷺ, you look at him and he lifted people. You know, he would look at someone and it's as if he sees through their soul. And he would see the qualities that they have and he would nurture the goodness in them. The basis was everyone has to have this good, moral, upright character. And then on top of that, he would see the skills that this person had in front of him, and he would refine that person and make them excel in that which was appropriate for them, not force them into a box.
So based on individual capacity as well. And we should not push our dreams and vision that we couldn't achieve as parents, as father or mother, that we want to make sure that our children achieve that. So
this is something we shouldn't do. You know, notice and appreciate the greatness in your child and help them, nurture them in that direction.
Excellent. Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Inshallah, we'll continue our discussion. But of course, it's important to take your phone calls. And of course, thank you so much for sending us your question through our WhatsApp and of course on our social media platform. Inshallah, we'll be taking those questions after a short break. You're watching Ask Eman live on Eman Channel. Thank you very much. Welcome back. You're watching Ask Eman live on Eman Channel Sky 757 in conversation with Shaykh Shaqur Rehman. 023-515-0757 our studio number, 07916841483 our WhatsApp number. Now, Shaykh, let's start with the first generated question, and that is from Brother Uthman. He's asking, when praying on a chair in Jamaat, are my feet supposed to be in line with the row or the back leg of the chair?
Okay. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. In terms of your feet, when you're sitting on a chair, like I'm sitting on a chair now, You know, the chair has these four legs, the back legs here, and when you're sitting on the chair, your feet are going to be here. So no matter what you do, you're not going to be able to take your feet further back than the front two legs. So if you have now placed your chair in such a place that the two legs, so where your feet are at the level of the row, then you're going to cause problems for the row behind you, and you're not going to be in line with them. So, you will put the chair, so the back legs of the chair are at the end of the row, in line with everyone else when they stand up, and you will be sitting on the chair. So that is the norm, because if you do anything other than that, you're going to mess up the rows behind as well, and the person behind you won't be able to pray. Okay, so just keep it like that, and then in that regard, people who need to sit down, they need to sit down because perhaps they have a knee injury and they can't sit on the floor, or they have a problem with their toenail or toes, and therefore they can't sit in the tashahhud position, the sitting in the second rak'ah or the fourth rak'ah. Yet they're going to pray sitting. For those people, they should remember to try to stand up in the prayer as much as possible. If you're able to stand, then what is mandatory upon you, according to all of the jurists, okay, all of the different madhahib, if you are able to stand, and obligatory prayer, you must stand. So begin the prayer standing. And then when you need to sit down, in the tashahhud time, whatever it is, because of your knees or because of your feet or whatever the injury is, then sit down at that point. Because you see a lot of people who are able to walk, able to move around, you see them doing all types of other things. And the injury prevents them from certain motions in the salah and not all of the standing. Then the principle in fiqh is ad-darura tuqaddaru biqadariha. The necessity is given its magnitude, its appropriate size. It's not made bigger than it actually is. So whatever you can stand of the prayer, make sure you try to stand, because that is one of the pillars, one of the obligations that you must fulfill during the prayer. And Allah knows best.
Thank you very much. Before we move on to our next question, Sheikh, let's move on to our callers. Let's see who's on the line. Assalamu alaikum.
Must fulfill during the prayer. And Allah knows.
Brother Riyaz, I think. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you very much for calling in, a young viewer. What's your question?
What is the character of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam?
What's the word? If you can kindly repeat the question.
What is the character of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam?
Excellent. Thank you very much. MashaAllah. Our young viewer has, first of all, thanks to your parents. You've sought the permission and called in live into the studio. What is the characteristic of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
What's the character of the Prophet
Character.
sallam? This is a huge question, isn't it? This you could write volumes on it, as our scholars have. The character of the Prophet sallam, and it reminds us of the famous saying that we all know of Aisha radiallahu anha when she's asked this question. She said, "Don't you read the Quran?"
Correct.
Because the character of the Prophet ﷺ was the Quran. To summarize it, he is the walking Quran. As Allah says, وَإِنَّكَ عَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. You have a station of manners that surpasses any other person, and the station is so high and lofty. That is the status of the Prophet ﷺ when it comes to his manners. Now, when we think about the Prophet ﷺ, it's perfection, human perfection in every single way. Yet at the same time, there's certain qualities from the Prophet ﷺ that we could probably home in on. And there's so many, but if we were to kind of just say 3 or 4, really main ones that you find so profound in the Prophet ﷺ. You find, as the hadith of Anas ibn Malik radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he mentions that the Prophet ﷺ was the most courageous of people and the most noble and generous of people. Okay, very key for especially for all Muslims and for men in particular. You find the courage and the generosity and nobility through that very, very core to being a Muslim man and being a Muslim in general. And then when you look at the Prophet, he is like his father before him, Ismail alayhi salam, from where the lineage of the Prophet comes from. You find Ismail alayhi salam described as Halim. Okay? And the Prophet Halim to a level that you couldn't imagine. You know, people do things to annoy the Prophet, but he's so tolerant. He is so forbearing. And look at how he was treated during his life. And all he wanted was to take the people to Jannah. And they abused him in every way possible. And he's the most noble of men. Yet, he held no grudge against them. And still, he didn't want their destruction. He didn't want them to be harmed. He still forgave the people when he had power over them. He was forbearing in every moment of his life. And that's why Allah describes him as Rahmatan lil Alameen, the mercy to mankind. So that compassion, part of that forbearance, coupled with those two other characteristics, generosity, nobility, and courage. Okay, so those characteristics very key and profound in the Prophet ﷺ. But when talking about the Prophet ﷺ, you'd need days and volumes to actually talk about the character of the Prophet ﷺ, because as Allah said, you are in the highest station of manners. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now this leads perfectly to a next question from YouTube. Brother Sayyid has asked a question. Is it bid'ah to say alayhi salatu wasalam after prophets are mentioned by someone else?
Alayhi salam is a dua that you're making for whoever you're speaking about, whoever you're directing it towards. So if you say the Prophet's name and then you say alayhi salam, or someone else says it and you remember them and you say alayhi salam, it's a dua for them. Yeah, it's a dua for them and you're getting rewarded for it. So, inshallah, there's no harm in doing that. So, someone saying it's a bid'ah is, why is it a bid'ah? Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ told us to have good adab when mentioning the prophets and to venerate their status, but don't go beyond bounds. So, making dua for them is within the bounds of the Sharia. So, we shouldn't think everything like this is a bid'ah. You remember the Prophet and you made dua for the Prophet because of all the trouble and the toil they went through for the benefit of mankind, and part of that is you as well. There's no harm in that, inshallah.
Thank you. Less than 2.5 minutes. Next question is very interesting. Assalamu alaikum. Can a woman give zakat to her husband?
Oh, can a woman give zakat to her husband? Why do you say this is very interesting?
I've never come across this question.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, let's look at it. Right, a woman has money, okay? Even if a child has money and they have enough money for the nisab, okay? So the threshold is met in terms of zakah. That zakah has to be given. So whether it's a man, woman, child, if you have or you meet the threshold of zakah, you have to give zakah on that money, okay? So it's due. So it doesn't matter if it's a woman or a man.
Correct.
Okay. Now, who can you give zakah to? This is the key. Right, you have 8 categories of people mentioned in Surah Tawbah, okay? And from them are the poor,
Miskeen,
fuqara, miskeen, fi sabilillah, etc. So you have all these 8 categories mentioned. Right. You cannot give zakat to someone who is dependent upon you, meaning that it's obligatory for you to look after them. So a husband, it's obligatory upon him to provide for his wife.
Correct.
And it's obligatory on the parents to provide for their children. Okay? It's obligatory upon the children to look after the parents. Okay. But it's not obligatory on the wife to look after her husband. Okay?
That's right.
So there's no obligation there. So if she has zakah, she has money, and she has to pay zakah on that money because she's met the threshold, and her husband is poor, okay? she can give zakah to her husband. Her zakah can go to her husband because she is not obliged to look after him. Whereas the opposite is not true. Okay?
So let me understand. So husband cannot pay zakah to his wife.
Yeah, his zakah cannot go to his wife.
The wife
Why not? Why can't it go to his wife?
Because she is dependent.
Yeah, he has to. He has another obligation to look after her.
Correct. Now, but the vice versa, because it's optional, so she...
She has no obligation whatsoever. She doesn't have that burden on her at all.
Okay, I'd like to continue this question, inshallah, after a short break, my dear viewers. You're watching Ask Iman live on Eman Channel. Thank you very much. Welcome back. You're watching Ask Iman live on Eman Channel Sky 757 0203 515 0757. Our studio number 07916841483. Our WhatsApp number. And of course, we are streaming live on our Facebook page as well as on our YouTube channel. So please feel free to leave your questions below in the comment section. Inshallah, if time is there, we will try our level best to take as many questions as possible in conversation with Shaykh Shaqur Rehman. Just briefly before we move on to the next question. We were discussing about can a woman give zakah to a husband. You did mention it's possible. Anything final words if you'd like to add?
Yeah, people criticize Islam for oppressing women.
Correct.
Okay. Yet, we need to understand that Allah doesn't oppress anyone. Okay. Because Allah is the one who said in the Hadith Qudsi, يا عبادي إني حرمت الظلم على نفسي وجعلته بينكم محرما فلا تظالموا. That, oh my slaves, I have made dhulm, oppression, haram upon myself and made it haram upon you, so don't oppress one another. So whatever the modern world says, these are the rights of a man and these are the rights of the woman and these are the rights of children and
parents,
what you have. No, actually, you don't understand the value of what Allah created in the first place. So how could you know what rights they deserve and what rights would balance the whole of creation? You can't know that because you're deficient in knowledge. Allah is the all-knowing. He has appropriated the rights to bring harmony in the universe. So Islam gives everyone their due rights. And you see, Allah looks after women. Allah has legislated that women need to be taken care of, honored, dignified. And mankind in general needs to be honored and dignified. This is Islam. So that's what I have to say here. And Allah doesn't make us lose our material wealth. He protects our rights when it comes to material things and spiritual things and everything else. This is Islam.
Jazakallah khair for clarifying. And my dear, just a disclaimer, we're discussing, it's a spiritual show, and of course our sheikhs and our guest always gives us guidance according to the Quran and Sunnah. If you do have any confusion, if you do have any further concern, or if you'd like to ask any question along the lines, then please, by all means, you can pick up the phone and dial 0203 515 0757. Moving on next to callers. Let's see who's on the line next. Assalamu alaikum. You're live. Brother Bilal, can you hear us?
Yes. Yes, I am hearing.
If I can kindly request you to please speak up. The line is slightly faint. Can you hear us clearly?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Okay, excellent.
Clearly. Thank you.
We can hear you now clearly. Go ahead, my dear brother.
Okay, thank you, brother. My question is if we see the history, Quranical history and Hadith Sunnah, the Bani Israel was all the time dominant position. Based on money, source, all of us, and until now in our society, in the background of political of any all kind of dominant position, money, source, and everything. So my question is, the Allah revealed to Bani Israel, how not to us, that we are Muslim, not the dominant position, or not are in a sourceful community or a country. And also non-Muslim people are also asking me that this question, you Muslim people are migrating in the West, and what is the reason? For property, Muslim people are they coming for better life. So why is like that? So they're asking their political questions. So I cannot mention here. Is it often? So what is the Sheikh thought on this?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Stay with us on the line. Sheikh, is the question clear to you? You'd like to ask?
Yeah, I think it's clear.
Is it clear? Okay. The question is clear. Thank you very much for asking such an important question. Let's hear the answer.
Okay, so firstly, the brother was talking about Bani Israel always being in a dominant position. This is inaccurate. Bani Israel were in dominant positions when they were abiding by the commands of Allah. Okay, if you look in the time of Dawood alayhi salam, when Dawood alayhi salam, if you read in Surah Al-Baqarah the story of Talut and Jalut, okay, at that time Bani Israel have lost the tabut. They've lost the box that they used to carry into battle, and they believed that they would be given victory because of this special box that they had the relics of Musa and Harun in. At that time, they had been dominated by another people. Okay, and then Dawood alayhi salam comes along. You have Talut becoming the leader, and then Bani Israel regain strength. So it's not the case that Bani Israel were always dominant. Okay, so they went through phases, and it's not because they had wealth that gave them that dominance. It's when they adhered to the commands of Allah, they were given dominance in the land. Okay, and that's the sunnah of Allah. Then Allah chose to relegate them because they had so many chances to fulfill the commandments of Allah, and they turned away from the blessings of Allah. So Allah replaced them with a new ummah, the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, so that's what's happened, and Allah has said that now they have been replaced, and this new ummah, the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, are the ummah that needs to establish justice in the world, leading by the book of Allah and the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with Islam and referring to Allah in all matters. Right. So this is what's happened. Now, Islam has actually been dominant for around 80% of its existence. Okay, we're living this 20% in which Islam has become not Islam, but the Muslims are living under domination of others. Okay, the world has been dominated by anti-Islam, if you like, Islamophobia, non-Islam, however you want to term it. So if we look, Islam rose and it spread and it dominated the world and was the superpower, or one of the greatest superpowers, for about 650 odd years. Then it fell with the Mongols for about 50 years. Then it rose up again. 50 years, this civilization comes about again to rule for another 600 odd years. So that's about 1,250 years of its existence. It is the superpower of one of the greatest superpowers for 1,250 years. Islam has only been around for what? 1,443 years. That's it. And out of that 1,250 years, it was the dominant force in the world. So the Muslims have been in charge and dominant for 80% of their existence. So those are the accurate, that's the accurate history of Islam. That's our legacy. That's where we come from. We're living this time because, the Muslim empire fell because Muslims started to move away from Islam, yani the spirit of Islam and even the character of Islam and the practice of Islam. And we see that. We all know that. Yani now, when you go to and deal with another Muslim, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I'm going to get cheated here. I'm going to get conned. That's not Islam. When the Prophet ﷺ, he said very specifically, إِذَا ضَاعَتِ الْأَمَانَةِ فَانْتَظِرِ السَّاعَةِ. If people's being trustworthy perishes and you can't trust people anymore, then just wait. The hour is around the corner. Okay? That's that's how it feels now, because you can't trust people, even when they are Muslim, because they're not living Islam. Whereas Allah said, when Islam is actually your way of life, O Muslims, when you live according to the divine revelation, Allah has promised us that He's going to give us establishment in the earth. Look in Surah An-Nur, you find it, the promise of Allah. وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Yeah, this verse in the end of Surah An-Nur tells you this is what's going to happen. And this has been the sunnah of Allah throughout the human history with Bani Israel and with the Muslims.
Just to clarify, because we have, alhamdulillah, non-Muslim viewers as well, if any Muslim emperor or ruler have done anything wrong, that should not fall on Islam, but the individual itself. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's not only for rulers, but that's for every person. Yani, Islam cannot be judged according to what Muslims do.
Okay.
Now, Muslims are human beings that, human beings are susceptible to all kinds of temptations. And that's every human being, whether Muslim or non-Muslim. Now, Islam should be judged on what it is, okay? But yes, people will see Muslims and say, yeah, they represent Islam. But whether they are a true representation of Islam or not depends on whether they are following what Islam has legislated. And this is in its pristine condition from the time it was revealed until now. It's there, okay? It's recorded. It's been carried and will be carried until Yawm al-Qiyamah.
Thank you very much for that, inshallah. A lot of questions inshallah, we need to ask, and we'll be back again after a short break. Thank you to all our viewers who are sending us questions either on YouTube or on our WhatsApp. Inshallah, we'll try our level best to answer as many questions possible, inshallah, in our next segment. You're watching Ask Eman live on Eman Channel, or 203-515-0757, our studio number 07916841483. Do stay tuned with us. Thank you very much. Welcome back to the last segment of Ask Eman, live on Eman Channel, in conversation with Shaykh Shaqur Rehman. 0203-515-0757, our studio number 07916841483. Of course, we are streaming it live on our Facebook page as well as on our YouTube channel. Thank you to all of you who are asking questions on our YouTube and, of course, our WhatsApp number as well. And don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe to all our platforms, including Facebook page and our YouTube channel. Shaykh, next question. Assalamu alaikum. What is the ruling regarding the wife divorcing her husband on her own will? Does she have to give back any dowry given by her husband?
Okay. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Right. So let's get a couple of things straight. And I'm going to try to be quick because it's the last segment and try to get through as many questions of yours as we can. So firstly, let's understand a wife cannot divorce a husband in Islam. Doesn't happen. It's not called divorce. The wife asks the husband, please release me from the marriage, and in exchange for releasing me from the marriage, I will return to you normally the dowry that was given to me. So it's not her divorcing, it's her requesting to be released from the marriage, which is called khul'a in Islam. So this is how it works. So he says, yes, I agree. and then they finish the marriage on this basis, and it's a khul'a where she's being released from the marriage. So who's doing the releasing? It's still the husband, okay? Because uqdatul nikah, or the nikah, is in the hands of the husband, okay? Marriage can end by him divorcing. It can end by her requesting to be released from the marriage and him accepting that. It can be dissolved by a Sharia council, for instance, because the marriage has no future in it, or there's so many problems. They cannot.
So by a qualified scholar or qualified person.
Not only just a qualified scholar. No. Authoritative board, authoritative body, like a Sharia council, well established, like an Islamic court, because the Sharia council operates like an Islamic court, and therefore Islamic judgment is given by them. Okay, so not just any old scholar, any old imam in the masjid. No, that's not sufficient, and one shouldn't go down that route.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, so that's how it works, and so it's an agreement that is initiated by the wife, saying to the husband, "I will return this, but please, in exchange for this, release me from the marriage." He agrees. You should have that witnessed, written down, ideally in front of an Islamic judge in a Sharia council, and that's how the marriage will be brought to an end.
Thank you. They talked about the dowry.
Yeah, that's the dowry, the mahar in Arabic. Every woman, when she gets married, part of the marriage contract is the mahar, okay? The dowry that is given by the man to the woman at the time of marriage.
Okay, just to clarify, does it need to be returned if it's a khula?
Yeah, if it's a khula, something has to be returned. Okay, so it's in cases where it's the wife wanting it and there's no fault from the husband, then the whole dowry. In other cases, it may be less. It may be more depending on what's happened in the marriage, okay, and what the actual dowry was, etc. But the technicalities, you would have to go to an Islamic judge in a Sharia council, well-established Sharia council, not any old Sharia council, because not every one of them is well-established and has proper procedures which you can actually trust and follow through with.
Thank you very much. Just a disclaimer, obviously these are generic discussions, so please do not take it as a conclusive remark. For individual cases, as Sheikh has mentioned, do seek one-to-one advice and guidance from Sharia Council and then take the necessary steps. Now, before we move on to the caller, Sheikh, this is an important question from YouTube. Muhammad Siddiq, Assalamu alaikum. What is the ruling of buying a car in monthly interest? Is it allowed in Islam?
Okay, wa alaikum salam. We know in Islam, you can't take a loan where you take an amount of money and then over a period of time, a long period of time or a short period of time, you pay back more money than you took.
So I take £100 from you, but I return £110.
Yeah.
That is not allowed.
So that, we know, is simple interest. We can't do that. Right. So that kind of money for money transaction, where there's a difference in the amount of money because of the time, or just a difference in the amount of money, that is riba, not allowed.
Okay.
Right. What I can do, though, is, right, Qamar has a car for sale. And he says to me, if you pay me up front, okay, all of the money.
For example, 20,000.
Yeah, 20,000 for the car.
Okay.
Or he says, right, if you want to pay for that car over installments, which will last
say
a
1
year,
year, 2 year, whatever it is.
Then I want you to pay 25,000.
I see.
Okay. If I'm still with Qamar, this is not a loan. I'm purchasing the car and
Directly.
I'm paying him an amount, but because it's being paid over a year, he's charging me 25,000
Extra
rather than
5,000.
20. Yeah. He's charging me a price. It's not an extra, it's a price.
I see.
If I'm paying it like this. This, majority of scholars say, yes, you can purchase it like this. So if you're buying a car in installments from the person who owns the car, so it's not a finance agreement, I'm buying the car in installments and I'm paying more, that would be fine Islamically. But if you're going through a finance company who gives you the money,
Third party.
yeah, third party, not involved here, who gives you the money and then, or
It gives you the money to buy the
it's
car.
the money, and they're buying the car, and it's really, I'm taking money from them and giving them more money back. That is not allowed.
So taking money, borrowing money from the finance company and giving it to the car company, but then again, in return, I'm giving the finance company
more money.
More money.
Yeah,
so
that's not allowed.
That's not allowed. Okay.
That's not allowed.
Jazakallah khair. Now, before we move on to the next question, let's move on to our callers. Next on the line, Assalamu alaikum. You're live on Ask Eman. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much for calling in. Your question, please.
I'd like to ask Sheikh if it's okay to count my azkar just using my fingers. If like I want to do 1,000 istighfar per day, and maybe I would like to do a certain number of salutations to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Is it okay? Because I had someone saying you can't count.
Is it clear to you?
Okay, sister, it's perfectly fine to count, and counting on your fingers, the Prophet ﷺ has mentioned that your fingers, when you count on them, they will testify for you on the Day of Judgment. So this is a blessed action which our scholars have been doing for all the duration of Islam. Okay, so counting on the fingers is the norm. Some people count on the beads. Some people count on the electronic counters or the clickers. Whatever. If you have a target, it pushes you to do more. If you don't count, you keep doing it, but you won't push yourself to that nature. If you have in your mind, right, I want to do 1,000, you will push yourself more. If you don't have this number in your mind, I want to do a certain amount, you'll do some, and then you'll get tired, and then you'll stop. But if you have a target, even when you get tired, you'll push yourself further because you have a target to reach.
Thank you very much. Brother Salim is asking a generated question. You'll be seeing that question live on air if it's possible. What is the ruling on doing good deeds that involve also getting paid and having benefits in this world?
Okay, so a good deed done that is purely for the hereafter has more reward in it than a good deed done where you benefit something in the dunya sense as well. Okay, both of them are good. Both of them get you reward in this world. But when you do a deed that has no tangible dunyawi benefit, then it's more likely that your intention will be purer for that good deed. And definitely, because it's purely for the hereafter and nothing from the dunya, you're going to get more reward in that sense than if you did that deed and you got something for it in this world. But it doesn't negate getting reward. It just means maybe the reward will be less because you get a dunyawi benefit from it as well. And Allah knows best.
Thank you very much for that. Next question we'll take, it's a combination. I'll take it from WhatsApp and YouTube as well. Assalamu alaikum. How far can a woman travel without a mahram? I've been advised I would not leave my hometown without a mahram. And the question, connecting question on YouTube, Brother Abdul is asking, do old women can go to Hajj or Umrah without mahram?
Okay. To be on the safe side of these, in this issue, one should only travel a distance where you would be able to shorten your prayer, okay, with a mahram. Any woman should travel with a mahram if she's going a distance where she could shorten her prayer. So if you would shorten your prayer in that journey, make sure you have a mahram with you on that journey. This is the safest opinion, and this is something that will secure you and keep you safe and protected, and so many other benefits in Islam. And this is why Allah has legislated that a man needs to be there to look after you and care for you in moments that you will be vulnerable. And every woman knows when you're traveling and you're out and you're going long distances, you're vulnerable. You're more vulnerable than you would normally be. Okay? So Allah said, you know what? When women are vulnerable, I will mandate that they have one of their male relatives who is a mahram for them, who will look after them and care for them.
Jazakallah khair for that. Time is up. A lot more questions are there. A lot of questions are there, in fact. But unfortunately, time is up. But inshallah, looking forward to seeing you again in our future episodes, hopefully, inshallah.
May Allah forgive us for not being able to get through all of the questions, and reward the brothers and sisters for asking them. And one of the other sheikhs will answer, inshallah.
Inshallah. With this, we come to the conclusion of our today's discussion. You can watch the repeat of this program either on Sunday or Monday, videos on YouTube or on our Facebook page. Please don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.